Iran and the US have now completed their first round of talks on Tehran's nuclear program. For days, Iran and the US disagreed on the nature of these talks, while Iran said that these talks would be through an intermediary and therefore indirect. The US said that these talks would be direct.
Negotiations between the United States and Iran
That's
in
right.
Oman. What are the president's chief goals for that, and is he satisfied with how Iran is responding to this? They don't want direct face-to-face negotiations, instead sort of old-school shuttle diplomacy where they're in separate rooms and messages are passed back and forth. So is the president comfortable with the arrangement there, and what is the chief objective?
Well, I have spoken to both the president and also his national security team who will be engaged in these discussions. These will be direct talks with the Iranians, and I want to make that very clear. I also spoke to the president just last night about his goal when it comes to Iran, and he has reiterated repeatedly to all of you publicly and also privately to his team here at the White House, his ultimate goal and the ultimate objective is to ensure that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. The president believes in diplomacy, direct talks, talking directly in the same room in order to achieve that goal. But he's made it very clear to the Iranians, and his national security team will as well, that all options are on the table, and Iran has a choice to make. You can agree to President Trump's demand, or there will be all hell to pay. And that's how the president feels. He feels very strongly about it.
Can you give us an update on what is expected on Saturday with the Iran talks? Because Foreign Minister Araghchi's column in the Washington Post yesterday made it very clear that there would be no talks if the U.S. was insisting that they are direct. And of course, the position, as repeated today in the cabinet meeting, was that they will be direct talks. So, do you still expect these talks to take place on Saturday? And will they begin indirect talks and then move to direct, or is there some resolution of that?
Well, I'm not on the team that makes that decision or has those conversations, right? And we're not going to litigate that here. As I said on Tuesday, and repeatedly say really about everything, if the president says something, that's my North Star.
However, it seems today's talks in Oman were indirect, even though delegations from both countries crossed paths for a few minutes. But there was no joint photo op or anything to that effect. This meeting is important given that the US under Donald Trump's first term as president had pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal in 2018. Iranian delegation was being led by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, while real estate tycoon and Trump's close friend Steve Witkoff was leading the US delegation. Given his abject failure in securing a lasting ceasefire deal in Gaza, you can imagine how useful he would be in such diplomatic talks. Anyway, Araghchi described today's talks as constructive. He told the Iranian state TV, and I quote, "In my opinion, as the first meeting, it was a constructive meeting held in a very peaceful and respectful environment because no inappropriate language was used." End quote. This is important, right? Given the blunt statements that Trump has been making in recent days. He recently went to the extent of threatening Iran of military strike if it was necessary to stop Tehran from acquiring nuclear bombs.
For them. What specifically?
Well, they can't have a nuclear weapon.
Did you mean military action, though, if they don't agree?
Oh, if necessary? Absolutely. Yeah.
And do you have a
deadline for these
Yeah,
talks?
I do.
And
You're talking about with Iran?
Yes.
Yeah, I
they're
do.
saying it's not
Do you want something
direct,
definitive this weekend, or do you see this as the start of a process?
It's a start.
Do you have a timeline?
We have a little time, but we don't have much time
Who is it starting the
because we're not going to let them have a nuclear weapon.
Is
Can't
it
let them have
Paul
a
going to
nuclear
be there, Mr.
The fact that the Iranian foreign minister said no inappropriate words were used by Steve Witkoff means that the US delegation did not repeat the threats of military strikes that Trump had foolishly uttered. Military strikes or no military strikes, one thing is clear. The US wants Iran to give up its nuclear ambition. And the US wants this because its de facto owner, Israel, so desires. War criminal Benjamin Netanyahu has used the US to attack Iraq and Libya in the past for the same purpose. Gaddafi had to pay a heavy price by giving up his nuclear ambition. Even though he became friends with the West, the same West led by NATO brought his downfall. NATO destroyed his country with a military strike and masterminded the end of Gaddafi's life along with his family members. Gaddafi wasn't the only one to fall victim to the West's betrayal. Iran doesn't have to look far to understand that the US and the UK can simply not be trusted on anything. Remember how Bill Clinton and John Major, the then Prime Minister of the UK, persuaded Ukraine to give up the nuclear stockpile from the erstwhile USSR in exchange of a promise that these countries would secure its future security. We know what happened to Ukraine in the last 3 years. The Budapest Memorandum was signed in December 1994. You only have to look at this embarrassing visual to understand the monumental mistake that Kyiv made in letting go of the nuclear stockpile.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people, you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems?
What?
Bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what
I'm not
You're
dictating.
in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good
I
position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
But right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What you-
III.
what you
You're
thinking about?
gambling with
What are you
World
thinking
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank you?
Even today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States
what
of
are you speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Even Clinton has now confessed that convincing Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons was a mistake.
How concerned are you about what's happening in Ukraine?
Well, I knew that President Putin did not support the agreement President Yeltsin made never to interfere with Ukraine's territorial boundaries. An agreement he made because he wanted Ukraine to give up their nuclear weapons. They were afraid to give them up because they thought that's the only thing that protected them from an expansionist Russia. So he gave them up. Yeltsin's word was good, he kept his word, but he couldn't pass it to the Duma. So when it became convenient to him, President Putin broke it and first took Crimea. And I feel terrible about it because Ukraine is a very important country, and I feel a personal stake because I got them to agree to give up their nuclear weapons, and none of them believe that Russia would have pulled this stunt if Ukraine still had their weapons.
The US under Trump would not agree to anything less than Iran destroying its nuclear facilities because that's what Netanyahu wants. And what Netanyahu, the real president of the US, desires, his lapdog politicians in the US diligently fulfill. The US has now effectively become a slave nation of Israel. Strong words, but that is the truth. So Iran would be wise to not give up its nuclear ambitions, as rightly advised by this US expert.
I think there's no question that a nuclear-armed Iran would bring stability to the region because nuclear weapons are weapons of peace. They're weapons of deterrence. They have hardly any offensive capability at all. And if Iran had a nuclear deterrent, there's no way that the United States or Israel, for that matter, would be threatening to attack Iran now. In the same way that if Saddam had had nuclear weapons in 2003, the United States would not have invaded Iraq. And if Libya had nuclear weapons in 2011, the United States would not have gone to war against Libya. So I think that if you had a Middle East where other states besides Israel, and this of course includes Iran, had a nuclear deterrent, it would be a more peaceful region.
Israel and the US have inflicted too many insults on Iran in recent months and years. They have literally made a mockery of its sovereignty. They killed Iran's top general with impunity, destroyed its diplomatic mission in Damascus even when al-Assad was in power, killed Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh when he was the state guest of Iran in Tehran, completely destroyed the Iranian proxy, Hezbollah, by assassinating its top leadership, and Iran remained a mute spectator. Had Iran gone nuclear earlier, everything would have changed. Both the US and Israel would think 100 times before even imagining of a military strike on Iran or its interest in the region if Tehran had a nuclear bomb. Listen to the Qatari Emir, a friend of the US, and Steve Witkoff. Any attack on Iranian nuclear facilities would cause widespread disaster in Qatar and the UAE, as this would poison the only drinking water source of these two pro-US countries. Yeah. This former advisor to the Iranian government on nuclear matters is warning the West about the consequences of any future military strikes against Iran.
Would Iran agree to that supposed Libya scenario proposed by the Israeli prime minister, do you think?
Of course not. There's not a chance in the world that Iran would agree to such a thing. And I think ordinary Iranians would ridicule such a statement coming from a genocidal maniac who actually possesses nuclear weapons. The Iranian peaceful nuclear program, even the Americans admit that it is peaceful. The Americans have admitted that since 2003 it has always been peaceful, even though it's been peaceful before then. But U.S. intelligence admit that. So the Israeli regime, as it slaughters children on a daily basis, is in no position to speak about Iran or Iran's nuclear program, or to speak about anything, to be blunt.
And we all remember that Libya eventually got bombed by NATO countries. Is Iran ready to defend itself against any potential attacks?
Oh, absolutely. Iran has a very strong military capability. It is a country much larger than Libya. But more importantly, is the fact that the Persian Gulf region is full of glass palaces. Qatar, Kuwait, the Emirates, Bahrain, all these Arab dictatorships, they have American bases. And if the United States strikes Iran, they will be complicit. They will be part of the aggression. Indeed, if the United States does attack Iran, I think probably people should leave those countries. If indeed the United States wants to attack at some point, people should leave these countries immediately, because these countries would not last under those circumstances.
But the question is, will Iran show some spine and go nuclear? Chinese nuclear expert Hui Zhang says that China's experience shows that Tehran could build a bomb in as little time as 3 to 5 weeks. And he wrote this in January this year. So there has already been more than 5 weeks. Iran acquiring atom bombs would also make Israel very wary of committing atrocities against Palestinians in the future. It would also have profound impact on the rogue regime of Israel, showing respect to the global institutions such as the UN. I will be bringing more updates on this matter in days to come. Please keep watching this channel. Do widely share our content and check if you are still subscribed to this channel. Thank you so much for your support of this channel and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.